Hello everyone, welcome to Woodcraft Spokane. My name is Joel and I'm going to be doing the titanium ring cores and bushings for our demo today. So let me just kind of pretend to be Mr. Rogers here for a second. Throw my turning coat. Welcome. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them out. Ed will go ahead and read those to me. Okay, so to get started, you're going to need a few things. Besides needing to get the actual ring, the titanium ring, it comes in several different sizes and widths, so you'll want to go ahead and pick the right one that corresponds with that. So I got a list here of some things that we want to kind of talk about that you will need in order to do a successful ring core. You're going to need the ring core, which we've already discussed. You're going to need a ring blank mandrel, and I would suggest a hardwood if you can. This is something that we're going to go ahead and use as a mandrel in order to turn the ring itself before we put it on the mandrel, which you will need a pin mandrel. Double-faced tape. I have that right here, so that's going to be very necessary when we put it on here and we start to turn. We're going to need a drill chuck, which I have here with my Forstner bit in it. You're going to want to pick a Forstner bit that is slightly smaller than the center diameter of the ring, because we're going to come in very carefully. We're going to come in and widen that hole so that the ring just barely fits in. And I'm going to say this again then, but right now I just want to really stress to go very gingerly on that, because you can really overshoot that in a heartbeat, and then you've got a ring that's flopping around in the area where you'll need to glue, and it just save you some time if you just take the time and go slow. The drill bit, which is the Forstner bit, which we discussed. I'm using a 9mm ring, titanium, and it is, it's a 6mm ring, and it's a number 9 for my size. And so therefore for the Forstner bit, I'm using a 11/16. You're going to want a 4-jaw chuck to hold your blank in here, scrap wood block, which we talked about, some 5-minute epoxy. I really suggest a 5-minute epoxy. Some people will also use CA glue. Epoxy is my friend. 5-minute epoxy is now called Quick Cure 5, made by the same company. It's the same stuff. They just rebranded the name on that. You'll need sandpaper, and that is about it, besides your normal dust collection, mask, goggles, that kind of stuff. So to get started, I like to tell everybody, go ahead and prep your project if you can ahead of time. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your ring core and you're going to want to sand the edge of that. I used 220, get it really scratched up nice. The reason for that is when we glue this into our blank that we've created, it has something to bond and adhere to. It has nooks and crannies, the very micro cuts that glue can grab onto. Let's see here. So once you've got your sacrificial block here, you're going to want to turn it, as you can see here, so you give it a room here to work with, and then you're going to want to flush cut that right here. I'm using the Rougher by Easy Wood Tools. It's a square one, and I'll come in, and what I did was already, for the sake of this demo, to make it so I'm not starting from scratch. This allows me to come in and prep this for the video. So we've done that. And then you're going to want to go ahead and pick a blank that you want to turn with. And when you cut it on the bandsaw, or however you cut it off, I cut it off this blank of wood right here. This was gifted to me about 10 years ago from Martin Archery. They use these different hardwoods for their recurve bows. And I've always wanted to do something with it, so I thought I would, for the sake of today, go ahead and turn one of these blanks that I cut off as a ring. Hopefully it will hold up and it will look really nice. If not, hey, you know what? That's what live videos are for. I have a backup plan, some figured maple that I can put together really quick and put on there. So once you have your piece cut, you're going to want to sand one side so it's semi-smooth. And what the reason for that is we're going to put our double-sided tape on that, and we're going to put it onto our sacrificial block, and then we're going to latch it down with our tailstock. So let's go ahead and get that step done right now. Let's go ahead. Are there any questions while I'm doing this, Ed?
None yet.
None yet? Line this tape up. And good times. Just kind of trim the paper a little bit so it's got a nice feel to it. Other things that you can do, I'm using wood. Before I started this demo, so I could practice for this demo, I used True Stone. That is a different material that you can purchase elsewhere. It is part 85% pulverized stone and 15% acrylic. You can turn it with standard tools, and it is beautiful. Other things we can make rings out of would be acrylic, antler, and anything else you can think of that is turnable, you can do. So you just want to get this somewhat centered. Looks like that feels pretty good. Let's lock it down. And that feels pretty tight. That feels pretty good. Let's make sure this is even here. We want to go ahead and make sure this is somewhat in the middle. Now there's going to be a trick. As you know, with Easy Wood tools, you want to go ahead and turn your projects where your carbide tip is in about the center of your project. I'm going to switch that up if you're using these tools when you get to the point, and I'll re-mention that. You'll need to bring up your tool rest ever so slightly, a little more than in the mid-level, because the bottom of your Easy Wood tool is going to end up hitting in that hole, and we don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and make sure I've got everything here and locked down. Everything feels good, so let's go ahead and turn it on, and I will get that turned. I think we have a winner here, Ed.
Nice. Looking good so far.
Let's take a look here. Ooh, that's looking nice. So far, I'm very pleased with that. Why am I pleased with that? Because this is Facebook Live. Anything can happen. Drill chuck in. Let's bring her in. There, turn it back on. The drill trick is nice. You put it in your tailstock, and as you turn, it will drill. Now, here's something to note. When you're drilling this, you're going to feel and hear the wood. As soon as that pitch of that turning starts to change, you know you have exited your blank here, and you started to go into the sacrificial blank. You want to stop at that moment. You don't want to drill any deeper than you have to. Back it up every once in a while, especially between certain kinds of species of wood can do what it's doing right now and smoke a little bit. That is a change. Let's go ahead and take a moment to pause and take a look. Still got a little bit more. I am there. Perfect. So at this point, what we're going to want to do is take your drill chuck out, set it off the side, and we're going to go ahead and take our tailstock off. Remember when I told you that we should bring this up ever so slightly? This is where you're going to want to do this now. Otherwise, your tool is going to actually hit the bottom. So we don't want that. So let's go ahead and now we are going to widen the center. Widen the center so we can do that. So we can get our ring in there. Go in straight. Right there. I'm not going to take any more. That is almost perfect where I want it. So, what's the next step, Ed?
Let's put a ring in there.
Let's do that. The next step is we're going to want to put this ring into the back of our project. So, take your ring, and then we're going to put a little bit of sticky tape on the back of it. Cut that tape so it doesn't wedge in there. Again, give it a good cut so it's a perfect circle around there. Any questions so far yet? Nothing yet, Ed?
No questions yet. Are having a little technical difficulty with the zoom.
Okay.
So I apologize, everything's very close up right now.
Tape's going on, it's going in the hole. Let's bring it to the back of the project. And now we can go ahead and turn this down so that it's more in line with the ring. Take small pieces. I have a feeling that I took a little bit more than I wanted to when I did the drilling with the Forstner bit. So I am going to stop there. Next thing we want to do is take a blade, a card blade of some sort, wedge it in there and get that to pop right off. We don't want to split the wood, but we want it to dislodge from the sticky tape, the double-sided tape. There we go. Boy, I'm sure glad this is working out. I think this is going to look really pretty. All right.
So anything you show Joel, stay right at the...
Right in this section right here. All right. This brings us to our next. We have our blank that we just turned. It's at the depth that I want it. Ring is on the floor. Frodo has it. We're good. And then we're going to go ahead and glue this piece in here. So let's go ahead and get our 5-minute epoxies. So 1-to-1. Mix it, mix it, mix it. Happy trees, happy trees.
We are zoom back out a little bit now, so we'll have a little better focus for our viewers.
Fantastic. While that's just kind of curing a little bit, I'm going to take this chuck off, because what's going to come next is our pen mandrel. With our bushings. Right there. Mix this up. You're going to want to put the glue on both sides. And clean up with some acetone. Acetone will clean that up really nice. So it's not on the actual ring body. Very nice. So we're going to let that sit for a second. Any questions?
Not yet.
Not well yet? Do you have any questions for me?
I don't at this moment.
Not one that you can even make up?
I suppose I can make a question up.
You've never been silent before since I worked for you. I worked with you, so I mean, why all of a sudden now? Nothing? Nothing. Nothing. We got. It's called 5-minute epoxy. So you got to have something for me, Ed.
So why would you choose 5-minute epoxy over CA glue?
It's a great question, Ed. The question was, why would I choose 5-minute epoxy over a CA glue? A lot of demos you see on the internet will call for CA glue, like the gel. I don't like it. I've had too many problems with that. With the 5-minute epoxy, or I should say the Quick Cure 5 by System 3, it holds on to my brass tubings and into my project and doesn't turn or break. The CA tends to, especially if I'm making or teaching a class on the slim lines, over time, for whatever reason, I don't know, not thick enough or thin enough, if you use the CA, sometimes that tube can completely crack and start slipping. I have not had that problem at all with my CA, with my 5-minute epoxy. I use 5-minute epoxy on almost all of my projects. I know that that hold is going to be there, and I'm not going to have any problems of slippage or anything like that. And especially if we're making a ring, you know, the last thing you want to do is have the beautiful piece that you've created on the top of that titanium ring to break free and slip. So that's a long way of saying I like 5-minute epoxy, and that's what I recommend on all turnings where you will need to basically adhere a metal body to your project, whether that be acrylic, antler, true stone, wood, whatever your flavor is.
So you just named a whole bunch of materials.
Yes, I did.
Are there any materials that you would recommend to our viewers that might be better or to avoid on the other end of the spectrum when making rings, for such as longevity and durability?
You know, that's a great question. If I understand the right, is there any materials that I wouldn't suggest for longevity?
Or highly suggest?
Or no, I think that I think one would say, you know, a porous wood would be a poor choice, but with thin CA glue, you can stabilize that. Or there's tutorials online with using cactus juice and vacuum sealing it in the bag to really stabilize the wood that way. Alone, a porous wood you should avoid until you stabilize it. I can't think of anything that I wouldn't use. Excuse me. I turn leather. So I have the ability to take leather, stabilize it, and I use that in a lot of my pens that I sell. And I've even made bottle stoppers out of leather. So I mean, there isn't anything that I would say avoid, because quite frankly, anything can be stabilized and anything can be turned to a certain extent. I hope that answers your question. We're getting close, folks. I like using Abernet. That is what I'm going to be sanding with today when I get to that aspect of this project, making the titanium core rings. Abernet is one of my favorite products. Here's a little box of it, but it has multiple grits to it. It starts off at 80 and goes clear up to 600. And I like it because when your sandpaper, your regular sandpaper, gets gunked up because, let's say, you're choosing a wood to sand that has some pitch in it, the Abernet I can literally put in my washing machine on cold and basically wash it, dry it on a towel, and they're just as good as when I pulled them out. So I guess what I'm saying is I like the Abernet because they last way longer and they're a lot more pliable. They also have the ability for hook and loop if you want to do that on a sander. And I basically buy that just for wood turning and sanding with that aspect. Another thing that you guys can do once you get your finish on your ring. Now I'm going to be using as a finish, for the sake of this demo, I'm going to be using friction polish. If you wanted to, you can also use do a CA finish, and there's lots of tutorials online on the CA finish. Use medium. I will sand to about 220, maybe sometimes to in the 300 range, and then put on a little bit of CA glue on that, let that dry, sand it ever so slightly to get any of the bumps out of it. Repeat that process 3 or 4 times, and then I I go onto a micro mesh. You can also do that on your ring, which would look gorgeous at the end. If you do a CA finish, hit it with micro mesh, would be gorgeous. Yeah, what else? Also, you can purchase online buffing systems, and there's also a Huts acrylic polish. Because if you do a CA finish, remember you basically turned it your outer shell of your project into an acrylic, so you can treat it that way. Let's see if we're getting close here. Ooh, we are getting close. I think if we give it one more minute, I'll feel more confident. I guess I can put it on there now. So the bushings go. This one got marred up. I'm going to talk to you about that. You saw that I used the rougher, the Easy Wood tools, which I love. If you're going to turn these, I would suggest, well, of course you're going to turn it. I would suggest using a different tool because, as you can see, I've got sharp corners on this tool, and they actually bite into your bushings. So try using a different one. I use the round one, and it works perfect. So let me get this set up. Put the tailstock back on. And we are set, just like that. We're using a standard pin mandrel. I'm using a number 2 because that's what goes into this jet. You'll need to decide which pin mandrel that you'll need, a number 1 or number 2, depending on your make and manufacture of your lathe. So we have this in place right now. I've got a spacer here that I created with a 7mm bit, and I've got several of these in my own shop that I can just put on here. I've got the bushings that come with, you'll need to purchase those separately when you buy your ring core. Got the ring core in the middle with my project on here from that we discussed earlier, that I got from the archery company, Martin Archery. And then I've got some 7mm bushings here for slim lines or whatnot, and I'm using those as spacers. So I think we are ready to get this down a little bit. So I'm going to turn this down to a certain width in diameter, and then I will move on to my next tool. You want to zoom in on that as best you can. Now I'm going to switch over to the other tool so that I don't completely ruin these bushings. Just going to kind of round it back and forth. Just be gingerly on this. All right. I think this is a good opportunity to come in here and do some sanding. This is looking good, guys. It's going to go fast. That feels good. All right. Let's take a look and see where we're at. Yeah, that's acceptable. That's acceptable for a demo. Any more questions, Ed?
Not at this point right now.
And I'm using the Doctor's Wood Shop High Build Friction Polish. Put that on your project and give it some pressure down below. That creates a heat, friction if you will, hence the name, friction polish. You can buy that at your local Woodcraft store. I give it a little bit of pressure and then give it time to cool down, and then I'll come back in with a little bit more. It's looking shiny. Just let that cool down just ever so slightly. And I think we're almost done. All right. Just let that cool down. Had one little problem with that, but that's because of the blank I chose. But that's it, folks.
Hold on.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there any questions?
Don't have any at this point right now.
You want to refresh that just to make sure that the computer's working correctly, and it's just not it's not letting us know. Well, it doesn't look like there's any questions, so I'll go ahead and sign off for now. It was a pleasure working with you guys today, doing the titanium ring core not pen kits, but ring kits, and we've enjoyed doing it and bringing that to you here at Woodcraft Spokane. And I guess Ed's doing some trick shots or something.
We're back to zoomed in very close, so I apologize, but everybody gets to see your beautiful eyes, Joel. So.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll get this posted for everybody. Bye-bye.